Oily exhaust smoke, the infamous trademark of the East German Trabant. A car that nevertheless created quite a stir in last year's RAC rally when it successfully completed all 350 stage miles and didn't even come last. East Germany may have disappeared off the political map with its production of Trabants, but you can still spot them puttering through the prairie landscapes of Cambridgeshire. The last time I was in a Trabant, I remember being frightened to death. I'd had this long discussion with an engineering student in Budapest in Hungary, and he ran me back to my hotel at about midnight across the wet cobbles of Budapest at 60 miles an hour, intent on demonstrating the phenomenal road holding and performance of this car. And I swore blind I'd never get into another one again.
You say you're having fun, but you're busy going nowhere. Just lying in the sun.
The tiny little two-stroke engine wails away up front. The whole thing shakes and vibrates. The gear change with this bit of bent steel is almost impossible to decipher. And when a corner comes up and you lift off, nothing happens because there's a freewheel. There's no engine braking at all. Owner of this impressively awful bit of automotive history is farmer and broadcaster Oliver Walston. Well, Oliver, that renewed some unpleasant memories. This is hardly a ball of fire out on the road, is it?
Well, it's worse when you've driven it 600 miles from Berlin, and then you really know it.
And what are you sitting in?
Well, I'm sitting in something which is really, the purists would say, isn't really a Trabby at all, although in practice it is. It was the last one the factory made in April 1991 as a desperate, ultimately hopeless attempt to sell it to the West. It's got a Volkswagen Polo four-stroke engine, hydraulic brakes, independent front suspension, and best of all, it's got a fuel gauge.
Yes, but I mean, surely it's taken away the whole appeal of the car.
Well, it's taken away the appeal of the car if you're a nut like me, but I imagine if you're just an ordinary Trabby driver in East Germany, this would have been heaven on wheels.
I must have a go. Well, one man's heaven on wheels can be another's motorised dustbin. The more East Germans became exposed to Western cars, the less enchanted they became with the performance and safety of their Trabbies. Now, obviously, Trabant knew things couldn't go on the way they had been. The wind of change was blowing through Eastern Europe, and there was no way the little two-stroke engine could even approach European emission legislation. The answer seemed to be an agreement with Volkswagen, and at first they fitted the 1.1-litre Polo engine together with a decent four-speed gearbox to the little Trabby, but nothing could disguise how basically horrible this little car is. With the demise of the Trabby, the factory today assembles Golfs, whilst they await the completion of an all-new VW factory nearby. So is Oliver's Polo Trabant the high spot of his prize collection, housed in one of his elegant barns?
I think it completes the collection. There's every single model Trabant made, starting in 1961 with that yellow one there, which is terribly difficult to find in East Germany. They've just about all fallen to pieces.
Well, what is the appeal of Trabant to you? I mean, they're never a high spot in automotive technology, were they?
Purely history. As technology, they stink. They are appalling. They have nothing interesting about them whatsoever technologically, rather the opposite. But they somehow epitomize everything there is bad, not so much good, about Eastern Europe in general and Eastern Germany in particular. Which is why, as you drive a Trabant down a country lane in England, people who aren't car nuts wave at you and cheer and clap and sort of grin. Everybody seems to know about Trabants. That's what appeals.
I mean, you're spanning, what, 30 years of Trabants, and yet there's not a lot of difference between them.
There's almost no difference at all. The yellow one, the original one, 500cc as opposed to 600cc. Outwardly, except for the yellow one, there's no difference. Inwardly, if you're a real Trabby connoisseur, you notice that they've switched from 6 volt to 12 volts, and they have a few other exciting things, like they have an economy meter on the latest ones, but to all intents and purposes, there's no difference. And why should there be? They had no competitors. They just sat there year after year with a captive market. All they had to do was to change the dashboard once a decade, and that was their strength, and it was also their weakness. They're made from a plastic which is almost impossible to get rid of, so that today in Germany, if you want to get rid of your Trabby, You have to pay the local authorities 100 quid to take it away and crush it up and recycle it. 100 quid, which explains why wherever you go in East Germany, you see the carcasses of rotting Trabants by the roadside, because nobody wants to pay 100 quid for the privilege of getting rid of a car.
They would never have made it in the Western world, though, would they? Because they wouldn't pass safety or emission standards.
They certainly don't pass emission standards. If anybody's seen a Trabi start up on a cold day, you need a gas mask if you're within 100 yards. Safety-wise, I'd hate to be hit by a pedestrian, let alone another car. It just would crumple. No, they couldn't possibly make it.
OK, not your usual run-of-the-mill classic, but a symbol of what future historians could well rate as the most important single event of the latter half of the 20th century, the fall of communism, as the first Trabants puttered through those breaches in the Berlin Wall.